And we want those resources controlled not by IMF and World Bank, Emmanuel. Because IMF and World Bank, you have the final say. We don't have no say, Emmanuel. We want another organization of equals. We are talking the normal, Emmanuel. If we continue talking the normal, Emmanuel, we will never solve this problem.
So I agree with you. I want a global taxation. This is my point.
You're saying it's good, but it's not what you're saying, Emmanuel.
I love having bold people, and I take the point.
UN Secretary General said on this podium this morning that there are countries that are paying 8 times in interest what the rest are paying. He was actually referring to those of us in Africa and largely in the global south. We're paying 8 times. And that is why our being in debt is not by default. We were set up by the system to be in debt.
Again, let's start today by looking at the events of the past few days, and let's see what has been going on around the world. We know that the migrant boat around Greece capsized with over 700 immigrants inside, and there were lots of deaths. It's estimated, certain sources are estimating that up to 200 migrants lost their lives in that accident. And then we know the most famous one is what happened during a few days ago. What happened, the visit of the African leaders to the Ukraine and Russia, and we know the outcome of that visit. We also know what happened to them, to part of the delegation, the South African delegation that was heading to Kiev, and they stopped over in Poland, and we know they were embarrassed and humiliated. They were stranded in Poland for close to 2-3 days at the airport, held by the Polish government. We also know that our African leaders were humiliated while in Kiev. During their visit to Kiev, we know missiles were flying over, and I did make a video about that, and we saw all the things that happened, and then they moved to Russia. While they were in Kiev anyway, we know that they had nothing. The outcome of that meeting was even worthless to mention, because the Ukrainian President Zelensky made it clear that he's not going to negotiate any peace until the Russians withdraw from the country. And President Putin was more receptive, and he gave his points. He talked of what is happening globally and why they are in Ukraine, and how the Ukrainians and the West do not want to compromise so that there can be peace. After the meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, they flew over to Paris for a global finance meeting, and we know that yes, it looks like the complaints, and particularly what I said in my video, which you can see some of the extracts with the link below, and you will just watch some of the things I said. For example, you watch this, I did say this.
You're going to Ukraine to beg for peace. What do you need from Ukraine?
Even as we were going to address an issue of the war which has had a negative impact on the African continent, which is the rise in prices for food, rise in prices for fertilizers, we were clear that we are not going there as beggars. We're not going to ask for a favor to both Ukraine and Russia.
Look at the COVID pandemic. When vaccines started coming out, what happened? Europeans took care of theirs first. before they started sending vaccines to any other part of the world. And you Africans, what? You were being sent the rest after they have taken care of your people.
I played a key role as chair of the African Union during the COVID period. We felt like we were beggars when it came to vaccine availability. When we felt we needed access to vaccines, and the Northern Hemisphere countries had bought all the vaccines in the world, and they were hogging them. And they didn't want to release them at the time when we needed them most. And we felt like we were begging.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, it looked like he watched the video and understood that Africans were now agitating and getting at their leaders. And you can hear from this wonderful speech he made, he just highlighted all the points that I made in that video, talking about the COVID, during the COVID times, the issue with vaccines, and it made it clear that their visit to Kiev and Moscow, they were not going there as beggars. We also know of the accident that just happened, this submarine, some type of research submarine that went missing, and a lot of, 5 of the researchers that were there, they all died, and it's quite a tragedy. But now, another big news that came up was the comparison between the two stories, and even the former U.S. President Obama did make mention of comparing what is news and what is not news. He did compare the issue of the immigrant boat that capsized with almost 700 immigrants on board, and a research submarine with 5 white people inside who all died, and the news seemed to pick that one better.
There's a potential tragedy unfolding with a submarine that is getting, minute-to-minute coverage all around the world. And it's understandable, because obviously we all want and pray that those folks are rescued. But the fact that that's gotten so much more attention than 700 people who sank
And that goes to show you, like I said in my other video, we Africans, we are not considered anything. Or people of color, when the darker you are, the less important you are, because this migrant boat, they had a lot of Egyptians, Afghans, Pakistanis, Africans. A lot of them were colored people, brown and black people, and the matter just died within a few days. But whereas a submarine carrying 5 researchers, it was big news. Anyway, nobody likes to hear a disaster that happens, be it with migrants or with researchers. It's just that everybody should be considered important. And then the most important thing I want to talk about today is the emergence of a leader in Africa. And sincerely, from history, I am being fearful of what might happen to this person. And we know this person has been so vocal. He's been showing his true Africanness. He's been coming out and saying things. And believe me or not, if we look at the history of Africa and African leaders who have had to come out and talk, who have been very vocal and being criticizing Western countries, they've not had it good for them. We can name people like Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, the late Tanzanian President Magufuli. I hope I got the name right. We know that many other African know that many African leaders who have been so openly criticizing Western countries have ended up losing their life. So when we see somebody who has come up now and is being vocal criticizing the systems that are being put by the West, I am just scared. And this person is no other person than the Kenyan President, William Ruto.
UN Secretary General said on this podium this morning that there are countries that are paying 8 times in interest what the rest are paying. He was actually referring to those of us in Africa and largely in the global south. We're paying 8 times. And that is why our being in debt is not by default. We were set up by the system to be in debt.
So I agree with you. I want a global taxation. This is my point.
You're saying is good, but it's not what you're saying, Manuel.
I love having bold people, and I take the point.
I'm sending this message to all Kenyans. Please, this guy needs protecting, because if you read African history, every time we've had somebody who stands up and fights for Africa, and that person ends up losing their life. And we know that some of our own people are accomplices. We can take the case of Thomas Sankara, where it is his best friend and ended up doing the job for the West. We can look at Patrice Lumumba. The same thing happened. His own best friend, Mobutu Sese Seko, was an accomplice, joining the American CIA and Western intelligence, Belgian intelligence, to assassinate Patrice Lumumba. Also, the Tanzanian ex-president Magufuli died of mysterious circumstances. Anyway, that is not the only president or any person that has been so critical of the West and come from a weaker country that has been eliminated. My message is to you Kenyans. Please, your president needs protection. Not only Kenyans, all Africans. I would like to direct my message today to all of you South Africans. I know the ANC means a lot to you people because of the fight and all the struggle that was led by the ANC and all the wonderful people that have come out, pillars, African pillars, people who fought for the liberation of South Africa. But please, I am just telling you South Africans, I might be a nobody, but I'm a concerned African. I am not from South Africa, but I am very, very interested in what happens in Africa. I would say you have a chance to redeem South Africa, and I will not hide it from you. We need a leader. You might not like Julius Malema, but that is the person I see, and we other Africans from other countries think that is the person that is good to lead South Africa. Now, I know you can say he's too radical. What do you expect? He's an African. I know his policies might not suit some of you. You might think he might bring war to your country. But I just believe Julius Malema is somebody that can lead South Africa into the next generation, because the fire that burns in him, he is, like you South Africans say, the spear of the nation. Now, I don't know the South African term. I don't know Nkonto something. Forgive me, I don't really know the term, but I know South Africans have this. South Africans use this particular phrase, the spear of the nation. And for me, the spear of the nation today in South Africa is Julius Malema. So any next election in South Africa, please, everybody, those of you who think, you don't think the ANC is not really doing the work the way you people hoped for. We Africans of other countries, we are watching. You are the power of Africa, and we count on you to lead Africa. And we need a young and vibrant leader like Julius Malema I think he's grown of age. He's now more mature. Yes, sometimes he said certain things in certain circumstances. He's been vocal, sometimes without control. But the Julius Malema I see, President, and most of us Africans see, is a matured man. He showed a lot of leadership, and you South Africans believe you can trust him to lead South Africa. And if Julius Malema leads South Africa, then he's leading Africa. Let him join his voice with the other African leaders who are fighters, so that we can build a better Africa. So now, I would like to pop again back to the Paris conference where these presidents were. You could see all the things that Africa has been going through, and through today the African presidents have gathered the courage to be able to speak. And when they speak, you hear the South African president saying, we didn't go to Ukraine or to America, to Russia as beggars, and we want to be treated now as equals. And then the Kenyan president took up the lead to say, we do need an IMF where everybody will be treated as equals. And that is the way we Africans want. It's not about the West dictating to us. You can hear him saying the IMF was designed to fail us Africans. And that is clearly true, because if you see everything that the IMF does, when it comes to Africa, we are giving loans that even our great-grandchildren will be unable to pay. You want to take a loan, you must do the structural adjustment, this and that and that. You must devalue your currency, and it's just to plunge Africa more and more into debt and suffering. That is not going to happen. And I really like the message of the Kenyan President, William Ruto. He's been firm and he's been talking. And in one of his speeches, when he went to visit Djibouti, he was talking about the need of African countries abandoning the dollar and creating an African currency and do business between African nations. You don't have to need dollar to do business. For example, a Nigerian wants to buy salt or coffee from Cote d'Ivoire, and then this Nigerian has to get dollars to be able to make the transaction. No, you can use the Nigerian naira to go and buy with the Cote d'Ivoire franc, and you do it like that. You don't need to get the dollar. So those are the things this guy has been talking about. My message today particularly is the fear of the elimination of the Kenyan president. Fellow Africans, we should not sleep. We have been complacent Africans. When we see somebody, a leader, that has come out, put his life to fight for us, we should all rally behind this guy. I am not talking only to the Kenyans. President William Ruto is an African. He knows what he's doing. He is fighting for us. But I fear, he might be eliminated. We Africans should join this man, put all our force and support behind him, and make sure he is safe. Fellow Africans, we should know that we should not accept history to repeat itself. We have seen good, young, vibrant African leaders who have been eliminated because they dare speak against the West. We are living in more modern times. Africa is growing. We should learn to protect ours. We should know how to retaliate. When Patrice Lumumba died, nothing happened. Sankara, nothing happened. Magufuli, nothing happened. Should something happen to William Ruto, Africans, you have to react. Let us make the world to understand that we will not take it again. And those of you Africans, who are being used as pawns to sell your own people, be careful. This time, if it happens, Africans will not spare you. Okay, just the past few days ago, something big happened in Russia. I will just make mention of that here, but I am going to do a full story about the Russian issue, and you would see how interesting the world can be. And I know a lot of people are looking at Russia and they are fearful and asking, is there going to be a coup d'etat in Russia? Is there going to be a revolution in Russia? None of that is going to happen, believe me. You will see my next video. It will be specifically on this topic of Russia. Let me just do a little summary. I was talking today about African leadership and the fear that the Kenyan president might be eliminated. But I am talking not only to Kenyans, to all Africans, and I am sending this message particularly to South Africans. South Africans need to be very careful. The West have decided because you are the blacks in control, they are going to destroy that country. And it's happening already. Look at South Africa, no lights. The other day, they're running short of water. South Africans, it's not happening because you choose for it to happen. It's by design. Because you guys have shown that you're taking leadership and you are now on the side of Russia, and the West is trying to punish South Africa, and they will not stop. But there is a clean solution. Your next election, please, we Africans, we are supporting you. We are rooting for you. We want a better South Africa, and we want a black leadership in South Africa. There is no secret behind that. We shouldn't be ashamed to say we want blacks to rule in South Africa. It is their country. We do not say that the whites should be thrown out or whatever, but we know that it's a black man's country. The whites who are there, it's for South Africans to decide. They are welcome. I would not like to see any fellow human being be treated poorly. Yeah, we know they did what they did. Sometimes it's just to let it go and life moves on. So we shouldn't think that the whites who live in South Africa, they should be in danger. No, but the leadership of South Africa should stay in the hands of blacks. And me in particular, and my fellow Africans, our dream is to see Julius Malema rule South Africa, because we believe he has that thing in him, the spear of the nation, as you South Africans put it. So next time you go for an election, Julius Malema should be your next president. Thank you very much, and see you next video. I am the Hungry Warrior. Do not forget, press the notification button, subscribe, go on Facebook, like our videos, share them. Every week we try to bring new topics about what is happening around the world, and you guys have a nice time.